All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone. Namaste to everyone and a good evening, good morning. Some really a nice session in the sense that we have people quite literally from at least half the planet. We have, I think, from Malaysia, maybe Hong Kong, and all the way definitely India, Middle East, and there'll be a couple of folks joining from the US and Canada in some time. They're just pinged to say that they're going to be a little late. All right, so there's a lot to cover, and so let's jump in right away. Um, I was told about having an introduction about myself. Maybe I'll just save that and say there was a speaker details that was sent out on the registration form, and I'd request everybody to visit that and have a look at who I am. But very briefly, I'm a doctor actually. So by the way, just let me know you can hear me and see me clearly, and you should be seeing a screen called Gulf Special Introduction to Markets. You can just put that on the chat and say that you can. So I'm looking at multiple screens in front of me, so you'll probably see me seeing all over the place. Thank you. And I've also been, so I'm a doctor, trained as a doctor, MBBS, MD, almost 30 years now. Went to St. John's Medical College in Bangalore, and then have also been running something called the Bangalore Investors Club for almost 20 years, 18 years now. It's been a wonderful experience in the markets, both in terms, not only just financially, but the sort of stuff that I have come to learn about the world and all the stuff that's going around. And I hope to share some of that knowledge today with all of you. And just to demonstrate, why the markets can really be something I really believe can be life-changing, not only just in a monetary financial way, but in terms of also life decisions that one might make or might not make about the future, because the markets is one place where just about everything in the world comes back to connect. Something or the other is happening, and if you can in a sense connect the dots, you really get a much better sense of what's happening in the world and why that is happening perhaps. All right, so having said that, let me very quickly uh, point out what is there on the screen, and the points that we want to really establish in this session, hopefully it'll be quite packed, is how stock markets can be the source of income in good and bad times, right? Anywhere in the world. So this is one key point that I really would like to establish in today's session. We have a variety of people today, and I'm just going to come to address each of the groups in a little while. But so one of the things that I have strongly felt is that one's future, to the extent possible, should be something that you hold in your hands, rather than one is a victim of the circumstances out there. And I say that in today's context of the global context, where, as we all know, there's a lot of job losses happening as far as, let's say, IT jobs are concerned. We are all seeing that. We are talking about perhaps a global recession in 2023, and we don't know how many more jobs might be lost. Of course, in the Gulf, I think the situation is very different. You probably are not feeling any of that, but definitely at the rest of the world that is happening. And it has happened before, whether it's the 2008 crash, whether it's the 2020 COVID lockdown that we all went through, seems like a dream right now. Whether it's the 1999, 2000, and then 2003 dot-com bust, so generations have been impacted one after the other. And is one's future hostage to these circumstances, or is there something that we can do and claim better control over our future? Obviously, nobody knows what exactly the future is, but to the extent possible that we can have some certainty, all the better. And that's where the markets come in, right? So that's something that I want to establish. And this is a session that is specifically focused on the GCC, Cooperation Council countries. And there's a reason for that, which I will discuss in the sessions following. So we are not going to be talking about the Indian markets. We are not going to be talking, we are going to be mostly talking about the GCC markets and the US markets. The reason again is because of the deep interlinking which is there. to demonstrate what is possible out of this. And we'll also discuss a little bit of gold, Forex, and crypto. There is, so like I said in this point, a way to secure your and your family's financial future independent of a job or no job and the overall economic circumstances, right? Okay, so with that, let's jump into some material that I prepared and I'm updating it. So you need to just confirm with me that you can see, where is this? Yes, now I need to share this. Okay. So can you confirm what you see on your screen right now, please? Can you see the PPT? Or is it still the?
It's still in the
Yeah, okay, got it.
It's still the earlier that, yeah.
Now?
Now we can see it. Yeah, now we can see it.
Great, thank you so much. Right. Okay. So the title of this session is called I Am Preneur, as you can see, right? And let me put that out. Why? So you have entrepreneur. We all know what that means. There's also the term that's been there a little while earlier in the about maybe 10, 15 years back. There was this in vogue intrapreneur, where you're doing something within an organization, right? I Am Preneur stands for you, I, right? M stands for markets, and preneur, as in you take charge. You are taking charge of whatever you are doing, right? So that's the title. And the idea is about securing one's financial future and financial abundance, no matter what. Of course, all this comes with a caveat. It's all nice to say no matter what. It's, of course, there's a catchy line to it. But as I will show you, there is tremendous opportunity. And unfortunately, a lot of us are actually not aware of what is actually possible. Now, before I move on to the session itself, let me just acknowledge. Can everybody put your mics off, please? Right. Okay.
As an administrator, you should do that.
Yes, yeah, people are joining and then they keep unmuting. All right. So let's move on. So there are three groups of people in this session. You're either a complete newbie to the markets, you've never invested in the stock market, absolutely fine, or you're a student, or you have basic knowledge, or you have some intermediate to advanced level knowledge and experience in the market. So let me just address these three groups and what each of you can look forward to in today's session. So if you are a newbie, right, don't worry about the details and the jargon. Don't let that bother you. Just get what's the overall idea that we are talking about, right? Get a sense of what is possible for you if you got involved in the markets in a more significant manner. And then maybe after that, you want to start learning, open a trading account, and think about at the end of the session, maybe I'll review this slide, how your life could be in the future if you took on the markets seriously, right? So that's for a newbie or a student. Those of you who have some basic knowledge, I'm assuming that you already have some sort of a trading account. You have dabbled in the markets, not professionally, but something here, something there, tried your hand out. Maybe you didn't make money. Maybe you lost more than you wanted, right? But could you, so I'm going to discuss various examples in today's session, right? And I want you, especially those with the basic knowledge, to look back, and of course, everybody else, to look back and say, are these real examples that you could have benefited from had you taken the markets more seriously? And then when we discuss the present and future opportunities, so by the way, let me give a disclaimer up front. None of the stuff that I'm saying here is going to be specifically a recommendation of you going to buy or something. If you do, the risks are all yours, the profits are all yours, and the losses are all yours. But if you did, right, if you looked at those opportunities, I'm just going to give you some examples, then what is possible for you in the future? Would you like to upgrade your skills? And then how about collaborating and networking with like-minded people to take on the markets and the opportunities that there are there? Those of you who are intermediate to advanced folks, right? You've been in the markets for some time, you're active traders or long-term investors, and you have a deeper level of competence. Maybe you're talking to other people, you're teaching other people, etc. Right? Do you have a repeatable process, a repeatable, clear process that you apply to the markets on a regular basis? Do you review your investments and trades regularly to update the ones which you should be looking at and take out what's not working for you. Do you use the platforms and the technology is available? So there's tremendous improvement. So when I started about 25 years back, I mean, it was pen and paper stuff. There was no software also for charting. We've come a long way in the world. You had paper certificates. Some of us are wondering what we are talking about. Share paper certificates. I'm sure some of us know what I'm talking about. But the technologies in terms of trading platforms, in terms of information platforms, in terms of screeners, etc., today are pretty advanced. And a lot of them surprisingly are free and or at a very, 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 very reasonable price. You'll be shocked if you actually got into it. So for the intermediate advanced folks on this session, if you actually got into that side and started to use this and really refine your approach, then what is possible for you, right? So this is something for the intermediate advanced folks on this session. So again, if you want to collaborate, network with like-minded people, because there's so much that's happening. It's impossible for one people or even 5 people to actually get their head around a lot of the stuff that is happening. And therefore we miss out on a lot of opportunities. There's that pain of missing out, right? But if you had some sort of a collaborative approach and we supported each other in saying, hey, you know what, this is happening, that's happening, why don't we have a look? Then what is possible? So this is for the intermediate advanced set of folks here, right? So with that, let's now look at what we want to cover in today's session. So one of the things I said is, why should we look at markets, right? Why should we all look at markets? What are our current challenges? Now, first and foremost, I think if we look at everything that's happening in the world, forget about everything else. Do you or do you not feel the pinch of the food and inflation in the last 3 to 4 months? Doesn't matter where you are in the world. All right. You could be in America, you could be in Malaysia, you could be in Africa, you could be in India. Have things gotten expensive? Right? I know the answer is yes. I know some of us are already cutting corners in what we are spending our money on, right? So this issue of the cost of living, basic food, education, and healthcare has become suddenly a lot more expensive just in the last 3 to 6 months, right? If anybody has a different opinion on this, I would love to, hear about it, right? Which brings us to inflation. Do we really understand inflation? Now, I'm going to show you some data and some information on a global basis to talk about inflation and to show. So by the way, everything that I say, I'm going to back up with facts and data that you can cross-verify in the future whenever you want, right? So do we really understand inflation, and are we prepared for what the inflationary challenges are for all of us in the future? By the way, when I say us, okay, one thing I wanted to say right up front, this session is about you and me. All right. It's about you directly, your family directly. Forget about the rest of the world. I would even say forget about the rest of the family. Take care of yourself, and then you can really support others. So I really want you to bring your life, your financial situation to this session and think about, okay, does this matter to me or not? Right? Okay, next. We've gone through COVID, right? And, a lot of us now live as though COVID didn't happen. The world seems to have forgotten about it. The world today, by the way, India said that there'll be 6 countries, visitors from 6 countries do not have to fill that Air Suvidha form about COVID vaccination. And one of them is China, Hong Kong, etc. COVID is officially dead, right? I mean, in the sense that nobody's really bothered. No government is really bothered about COVID anymore, right? They just want to move on, be past it. But we know what happened in COVID. There might be some of you here who were personally affected by COVID in a very direct manner. You might have lost your jobs, or you might have had to take a pay cut, or your bonuses were cut, or people in your family or friends who were affected by COVID, right? We had SARS before that in 1997, and COVID will not be the last thing that has happened. There will be future biological disruptions that the world is going to have. And again, these are things in the longer term. Unfortunately, we don't take this seriously. Therefore, we are not prepared for it. But trust me, the data is there. It's going to happen, right? When it happens, the question is, are you ready for it? Then recession. who's getting affected and who doesn't. Some people are making lots of money, some people are not, but there is at least a slowdown happening. There's been a huge thing with 2 lakh IT jobs in the top companies. The FANG companies itself already been fired. A lot of startups have shut down, definitely in India and definitely across the world. A lot of startups have completely shut down and gone bankrupt. There's been a startup funding drought or winter, as we are calling it. So a lot of people are just, all the dreams are just really crumbling down. Let me talk a little bit about jobs in this whole scenario. 10 years back, how much is in, by the way, if those of you in India, you saw people, interns at Wipro and Infosys were laid off, right? They said that they did not pass some internal tests, therefore they were, let off. And companies did a great thing by saying, okay, we forgive your training fees and, nonsense like that. Anyhow, 10 years back, what was the starting pay of an IT starter? What is the starting pay of an IT fresher today? Go and look at the data. It is more or less the same, right? 30 to 40,000, 4 to 5 lakhs, maybe 50,000 tops. 10 years back, it was 30 to 40, 50,000. Now, if you take inflation into account, how does one manage and where is the growth going to come from? So this is the reality. And we've also seen many of these headlines where, just for a 500 or 1,000 government jobs, you're getting lakhs of people who apply. This is not just happening in India, but it is happening elsewhere also. So I know we have on the session folks from India, from UK, from Pakistan, from Malaysia, from the US. You need to connect this. So in UK, for example, we have all these strikes that are happening, right? Never happened for about 10, 15, 20 years, and they're happening for a reason, right? People could be losing jobs. Next, ChatGPT, not much to say about it right now. This is not a session about ChatGPT, but we know what's going on. And the threat to jobs. So the shocking part about the ChatGPT was that it was considered that automation would take away the lower end jobs, but automation is taking away the high end jobs, right? So a creative director, a speech writer, somebody who needs to be, creating stories. We know what ChatGPT is doing. Historians, you can write a whole book on, whatever history that you want now. Forget about the facts, right? You could write a whole history book. You can, what's happening with the educational institutions and, writing essays and all that. So where is this future? And I'm saying that jobs are going to be very, very uncertain ways of planning an entire lifetime of income. The way job market is getting disrupted and will be disrupted at a much, 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 much faster rate. This year itself, when ChatGPT 4.0 comes out and all the other companies that come out with it, well, we haven't again woken up to the challenges in front of us. Politics, I'm not only just talking about politics in India, but I'm talking about politics everywhere, whether it is in the West or whether it is in the Gulf or whether it is in the East. The move to the right wing, the move to radicalization, the left parties and the right parties and all of that are creating real challenges for what the social political structure of the world is going to be in just about every region of the world. Now, when you combine all this, so like they say, some of the analysts say, not some, many of the analysts say we are living in a time of polycrises, many crises that are happening simultaneously, right? And these are things that are affecting us directly, whether we like it or not, and definitely the future of our children, right? So for all these reasons, question is, if anyone, and okay, I haven't added climate change here, I should add climate change. If any one of these things were to affect your life directly, and they are affecting our lives directly, then what happens to your financial future? And of course, money is in a sense everything. If you don't have money, then how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to get your retirement pension? How are you going to make sure that you can pay your EMI and blah, 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 blah. I can go on, right? Okay, so before I jump into all of that, let me just share a chart with you, right? So can you all confirm that you can see this chart? This is the inflation chart of the US from 1915 till right now today, right? Can just somebody put up on the chat that you can see it? Yeah, great. Thank you so much, right? All right. Let me just run us through this chart because again, why the US? Simply because US is the sort of default large macro economy. If something happens in the US, it's happening everywhere else in the world, right? It's just a question of more or less. So let's pay attention to this chart. Now I'm going to zoom in. That's the entire history. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to take some of the history out, right? Okay. So let's just look at this part, what you can see on the screen right now. And what you should be able to see is data from 1985, 1984, that's where the cursor is right now, till today, right? And what this shows you is that the US inflation stayed between 1%, that lower red line, to 5% for an entire period of 42 years. For 42 years, inflation stayed between 1 to 5% in the US, which basically means the rest of the world, in India, in the Gulf, etc., you had this period of very low inflation, which means all of us, just literally almost all of us who are on the webinar today, have lived in an era of low inflation, right? Only in the last 6 months, 1 year, we've woken up to that, oh my God, prices are just going up all through the roof. And I can give you n number of examples, how much idli vada is costing today or how small the idli vada has become. And I'm sure you can take examples in your own home countries, wherever you are, whether the price of bread or the price of milk or the price of anything has gone to 5-10-year highs, right? In the Middle East, 3-4% inflation is unheard of. In Europe, where UK and Europe are running 10 to 15% inflation, unheard of. Strikes happening, unheard of, not happened for decades. People are demanding money. They're demanding more money simply to keep their electricity on and food on their table, right? Now, I am sure there are people on this session right now who have felt this pinch and are cutting corners. And it happens unconsciously in the beginning, but it tends to then, percolate to the rest of your life, right? So the point here is this. There's a question I've put here. 42 years of low global inflation. Are we headed into a high inflationary period? If yes, how long could this last? And what are the implications of this, right? This is a question that all of us have to ask very, very seriously. For 42 years, we never had inflation. US inflation hit 9%. Now it looks like it's cooling off, right? But there are a lot of other things happening in the background that we are completely not, in a sense, aware of. Let me point out just one or two things that are going to hit you and me in 2023 that we should be prepared for, right? So one of the things to talk about is the Ukraine, Russia, Europe war, right? Many people don't know that Ukraine is one of the largest wheat producers in the world. Forget about oil and gas, right? Many people don't know that Ukraine is one of the largest wheat producers in the world. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, that entire crop, basically nothing happened. For almost a year, nothing happened. And then, of course, in the last 1 or 2 months, there were these deals that happened between Europe and Ukraine and Russia, with Turkey mediating in between, etc. And some of that grain finally got released to the market, right? So what happened while all that was happening? Wheat prices just went through the roof, right? Wheat prices just went through the roof. Let me see if I can get you prices of wheat, right? Okay, there you see, right? This is the chart of global wheat prices from, let us say, 1916 till now. And what happened in the last 4 years? Wheat price went from $150, this is global prices, to $450 per whatever it is. This is from the International Monetary Fund, which is a 4 times increase in wheat prices that has happened. Looks like a little bit of a cool off. Last week, 10 days back, there was a Government of India announcement that wheat prices in India hit a 10-year high. Your bread prices in India have gone up by 50% in the last 2 years. Expect these prices to increase. You know why? Here's the reason, right? So last year, because of the war and because of climate change, the crop that was supposed to be sown for next year's harvest did not get sown properly across the world. You had fires and floods in Australia, another major wheat producer, and you had very hot summers in Europe, another problem area that happened. And you had the California drought that happened. And Biden is on record. Please go Google this up. He said 6 months back that there will be a food shortage in the US in 2023. Right? What do you think the US is going to do when there is shortage of food? They're just going to take the food from the rest of the world. They don't care about the rest of the world. Right? So if you think that food price increase is temporary, then please wake up. It is not temporary. Amul increased milk prices twice last year and once 2 weeks back. All right, that Amul is the largest producer of milk in India. This and palm oil prices, yeah, cooking oil prices have doubled, tripled, right? So where is, yeah, I think here, right? Palm oil prices, the most commonly used cooking medium for everybody, whether it's the household or it is your manufactured processed food, right? Went from 450 to 1,600, cooled off a little bit now. We'll see what happens the next year. These are, again, you can see, decade-long high prices that are happening in commodity after commodity after commodity. These are essential commodities that we are talking about. So I've collected a whole lot of data. On the right side, you see on the screen, there's a whole list. There's probably not going to be enough time to go through all of it. But my point is this: basic living is become very, very expensive in ways that the public is still not appreciating. And the question again remains, has the entire world entered a phase of high inflation as we had in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? So if you are over, I think 50 or 60, and I don't think there are many people here, at least in that age, there was a time of high inflation worldwide, including in India, right? Where, you had the post office bonds, post office savings scheme giving you 15% in India interest, right? Today, if you can get 8% anywhere, you'd be damn lucky. So if the world has gone into an era of high inflation, an era means at least the next 10, 15, 20 years. And if this is just the beginning of that high inflationary period, then what is in store for the rest of us, for the rest of in the this year, next year is, I'm not talking about 10 years later. I'm talking about this year. I'm talking about next year, etc., etc. Compounded on that has been in the previous global recessions and stock market crashes where the US government and Europe and India and everyone else, right, including the Gulf countries, printed huge amounts of money, right, and put it out into the world, and money itself became useless. And therefore, the asset prices just went up. These are, have you seen how ridiculously expensive property has become anywhere in the world, right? Whether, a flat or a piece of land or anything, anywhere in the world, millions and crores is just talked about as though it is like, chocolates nowadays. And I'm sure a lot of us are feeling, left out and wondering what the hell is going on, right? This is simply because the tremendous amounts of money that has been printed in the world, and it just goes on into a different conversation. But I just want us to get a sense of what is happening in the world, and this is affecting you and me in a very, 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 very direct manner, right? And we need to wake up to these challenges, and we need to be sure that we are equipped to deal with what is coming ahead. So now, in terms of dealing with being equipped to what is coming ahead, so let me ask you, I think most people on this session are people who are working in a company, who have a salary, maybe have some limited income from some pension or some some rent, or I don't know what, right? If inflation is going up, let us say by 20%, then is your income going up by 20%? Anybody wants to say yes to that, right? If inflation goes up by 20% next year, will your income go up by 20% next year? Can you go and ask your boss, hey man, things have become expensive, I need more money? I think there's a very good chance that your boss is going to say, well, you know what, I think you find some other place, right? This is not a challenge that can be faced by your current financial situation. There is really no choice except for all of us to really wake up, pull our socks up, and ask ourselves what we can do about our purchasing power of our money, which is fast depleting. In a recessionary world, or in a world with almost many of these poly crises, number of startups folding up, entrepreneurship being very hard to pull off right now, are businessmen increasing their profits by 20% every year? Because if inflation is 20%, then if your profits are not increasing by 20%, then well, you're slipping, right? So the two traditional ways that money is usually made, right, either through a job or through running a business, is it meeting inflation? Forget about, you can make nominal money. So I was making 100,000 rupees. Now I'm making 110,000 rupees, but my expenses have gone from 1 lakh to 120,000. Then what do? I have to slip back, right? So these are the real challenges, and there's plenty of data on a global basis to show you for every region that this is a real issue. And like I said, I cannot reiterate this enough, that these are things that are not going to go away. They're here to stay probably for the next few years. And it is in our direct personal interest to take these issues really, really seriously, right? So with that, that's the background, right, of why we need to look at our financial future and how do we secure it. So forget about even abundance, just how do we keep ourselves where we are and keep our head above water. So let's look at how do we prepare. And what I'm proposing is that we look at understanding markets as a way to secure our and our family's financial future. Now, before I jump into real examples, let me just say a few things about the markets, especially for the newbies and the students. And there are some folks here who are like from the next generation of my family. I'm very keen to impact that group of people, in the sense that this is an opportunity for them that perhaps older people like me did not have. And I'm trying to impress what we can do for them. Right. So one of the things that is great about the markets, which again, I challenge any one of you to find something like this in any other area of life. Okay. Number one, that it is global in nature, right? The same body of knowledge that you use for analyzing an investment or a trade is useful in any market anywhere in the world. So it doesn't matter which corner of the world you are, is the same body of knowledge. Once you have that body of knowledge, it stays with you for the rest of your life, no matter where you are. You don't need a license to use that body of knowledge, right? You don't really need a license. Nobody, like I'm a doctor, right? If I want to practice outside of India, I really can't, because I'll have to go get myself licensed, except a few countries like Gulf and Africa, probably the exceptions. But anywhere else, I want to go to Europe, I want to go to Canada, or I want to go somewhere else, I'll have to go get myself licensed. Of course, you IT guys don't have that issue, right? But then if you are going, there are these things like, is your certificate valid? Is your degree valid? You have to go to that VES issue, get your accreditation done, etc., etc. None of that matters as far as the stock markets are concerned. You want to start a business, you know all the hoops that you have to jump through. You want to go and start a business abroad, you know all the hoops that you have to go and jump through. But as far as the stock markets or any financial market is concerned, you need knowledge, you need a trading account, and of course, you need some capital. Three things that you need, and you are set to do this from anywhere in the world. Of course, depending on your nationality, your citizenship, and your place of residence in the world, there will be some rules that apply which allow you to do something and not do something. But trust me, there'll always be some financial market that is accessible and available to you. Therefore, everybody has opportunities. This is opportunities for everyone without exception. What you need is common sense. You don't need an advanced degree in finance or mathematics or an MBA or anything like that. If you have common sense, but like they say, common sense is commonly not found, right? But if you have common sense, or rather, let me rephrase that. We all have common sense. If you're willing to use our common sense, then that's all you need to bring to the market, along with commitment to put in the time and effort to learn whatever you need to learn as far as being effective, making more than losing. A question that is very often asked to me is, do I need to sit in front of the screen every day? So this is one of the myths of, I think, popular media, social media, TV, movies, etc., right? Where you see people sitting in front of 1 or 10, 20 screens all day, morning to evening, and this is not what I want to do. Well, that's the myth. That's the drama, right? You can be a full-time day trader if you want, or a night trader if you want. You want to trade, some other part of the globe while it's night in your place. That's fine. You can do that, right? But you don't need to do that. That's not the only way. So one of my favorite ways of explaining this is, suppose you want to be healthy in life, right? If you want to be healthy in life, what are the ways? Is it that you have to only go to the gym, only swim, or only play cricket, or go hiking or mountaineering or horse riding? It's not that. You can achieve fitness in any way that you like, right? So just like you can achieve fitness in any way that you like, there are many different ways of making money in the market. So on the one hand, we hear of day traders. On the other hand, we hear of long-term investors like Warren Buffett or our who was that in India, Junjunwala, etc. So there's a whole spectrum of people. There's always a way for you to participate in the market. Do you want to look at the market only once a week? Trust me, it can be done. Okay. You want to look at the market only once a month? You want to look at the market only once a quarter? There are ways for all these approaches. Now, why I have not, so some of you are thinking, oh, something terms like technical analysis, fundamental analysis, quant trading, and all. Forget about that. I'm not going to be covering that in this session today, right? I am more interested that we all understand here that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstances are, there is a way that the markets can fit into your life. I do not believe in this concept of you need to change to make the markets work for you. No, you can be who you are and decide, okay, this is how much I want to commit to the markets. And as long as you do that in a proper, consistent manner that is sensible, right? The markets are there for you, right? Then you have, depending on what your level of knowledge is, you have zero knowledge, no problem. You can start right from scratch. You have intermediate or advanced knowledge, then you have all sorts of very high-end platforms that are available to you. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you are like, just stepping into, college and making your first money, or maybe you're in your retired years. It doesn't matter. There is all sorts of things possible, right from the very simple to the very advanced options that are there for people. So you need to basically select what is suitable for you, right? So I wanted to put this out because in the questionnaire that I put out, there was, I think, quite a lot of people who said, I'm a complete newbie. I don't know, what it is for me. So I said, okay, let me clarify this. So I hope this is very, very clear that there is absolutely a way for everyone, right? Okay. So now I'm coming to, I'm saying, let's jump in, right? So 45 minutes into the session, I'm saying, let's jump in. So I'm wondering what I was talking about. Well, that was all important, right? So let's jump in terms of looking at what is there in the markets and giving you some live examples and recent examples and busting some myths also about what is okay and what is not okay, right? Feel free to put out any questions that you have in the chat. Preferably don't open the mic. We have quite a lot of folks, so just put it out in the chat, and hopefully I will look at that chat and I'll take the question from there. If there's something really pressing, then you're most welcome to do that. Okay, so this is the inflation chart. You should be seeing that again. Let me demonstrate a few things that have happened in the recent past that I hope will get you thinking, right? So let me just start off with something that, since most of the folks here are in the Gulf, let me put up something from the Gulf, right? Okay. Yes. All right. So this is the Abu Dhabi Global Exchange Index, right? And there was one more. All right, let me go through this and demonstrate what happened in the Middle East. So you have the Abu Dhabi index, which is just the default, let us say, for the entire UAE. You also have the Dubai index. We can get that up also, right? And basically stayed flat from 2014 till 2020 at a time when it was almost at its life high. Okay, so if I were to go back to, let's say, 2020, right, this is where you were, right? So this is where the Abu Dhabi or the Gulf markets were. And then you had COVID and the markets just crashed from 5,200 to 3,800, which is quite, substantial. That's almost, let's put a number, and that is almost a 26%, 30% fall in the overall index. And if that's how much the index fell, individual stocks might have fallen 40, 50, 60% or more, right? Okay. What happened after that? What happened after that is very interesting, because within 6 months to a year after the COVID crash, and this is 2020 November now, the index is back from its lows of 3,750 to 5,200. So again, retrospect is always, hindsight 2020, like they say, exactly what you should have done, when you should have gotten out. But we'll come to that conversation in a little bit, right? If one had gotten in at around 3,800 or 4,000, in about less than a year, 4,000 to 5,000, you made 25% return on the index only. Individual stocks would have returned 30 or 40%, right? Okay. What's interesting is what happened after that, right? What happened after that? The index just went up and up and up and went all 10,000. It went all the way to 10,000 from say 4,000 base to 10,000 dirhams per on that index. You have to really get a sense of what this actually means. Why did the UAE index rise so much? If I look at you, if I take a measure of where it went from here to there, that was a rise of 165%. I hope you can see it there on the screen. 165% rise in the Gulf, not all Gulf markets, but the UAE markets. This is like ridiculous. You multiplied your money 1.5 times in a matter of 2 years. And you don't need 1,000,000 dirhams. You don't need 1,000,000 riyals. If you had 100 riyals, you had 1,000 riyals, it doesn't matter. You got in at the market at the right time and you held, then this is where you would be, right? I'm going to perhaps speak a little bit more about this later, but here's the thing. All of you folks in the Middle East, I know you just take this for granted, right? But I need to mention it anyhow. All this money that you made would have been 100% tax-free, right? There are very few regions left in the world where you can make these sort of any money and pay literally zero tax. Of course, I know we have the VAT and that tax, but you have no income tax, you have no capital gains tax, right? All the income and the capital gains profits that you make are 100% tax free, at least in the Middle East. Now, your specific situation may be different depending on what nationality you have. So some countries, for example, America and Canada, have what is called global income taxation. So it doesn't matter where you make your money anywhere in the world. If you're a citizen of that country, you'll have to pay tax to that country. But if you are, let us say, a non-resident Indian, you are a non-resident Pakistani, you are a non-resident from many African countries and Asian countries, etc., right? And you're working in the Middle East, you pay no tax anywhere legally 100%, right? But by the way, so this brings me to a point that I want to make, that all of you who are there in the Middle East who are investing back in your home countries. So if you are an Indian, you're investing in India. If you're a Bangladeshi in Bangladesh, if you're in Pakistan or wherever, I really wonder, have you folks thought this through? Because you will be subject to tax for the incomes that you make in your home country, right? So if I'm an NRI, but I invest in India and I make some money in India, I have to pay tax on that Indian income. But instead of putting that money in India, if I put that money in the Gulf markets, right, then I would have not had to pay any tax anywhere 100% legally. neither through my home country, nor to the Gulf, nor to anywhere else, right? So if you are, I don't know, whatever, 10, 20, 30% tax bracket, that's clear, straight money that comes to you that you would not have to, give up to anybody. So this huge advantage of your location and of your tax residency is something that I think is not fully appreciated. It's taken for granted. And if you really, really look at how much money you would then save and save up just because of your tax advantageous situation over, let's say, your lifetime or 10, 15 years, it's literally life-changing, right? So let's come back to the market, right? So this is what happened in the Abu Dhabi market. And then we are still there right now, right? One of the few markets in the world, by the way, which is at what we call close to or at its life high. Some of the Gulf markets are at their life highs. This is just crazy, right? It's not Europe. It's not America. It is not India. It is not Japan. It is not Australia. It is none of the so-called developed countries whose stock markets are really at life high levels, right? There are exceptions, and I will come to that. But I wanted to highlight this as to what is the stuff that you guys, just you guys are right there at the right time at the right place. Yes, what if you didn't participate in this rally, you missed the move. But so the thing about Gulf is, of course, everybody's like wants to buy real estate and property and gold and all of that, and I think we miss out on much bigger opportunities which are out there. Since I mentioned gold, right? Let me bring in gold, and just to show you and demonstrate a few issues with gold that probably are in the realm of a lot of myths which are out there. So this is the price of gold. And by the way, all these charts are very simple charts that I'm demonstrating and I'm showing for this webinar. Tried to keep it as simple as possible as far as the data is concerned, right? So any of you who are like intermediate or advanced folks and who are not looking at any complex charts, just please bear with us in the interest of everybody. But I think simple line charts can convey stuff that more complicated stuff can't. Right? Okay. So this is the price of gold. By the way, let me clarify. This is the price of gold in dollars per ounce, US dollars per ounce. This is not in rupees. This is not Indian price. This is not the Gulf price. This is not some other price. So this is just the US price, global price. This is the sort of benchmark reference price that is used. And then it's converted into local currencies plus your taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Okay. What do you see? Right? 2002. If you look at this was the time of the dot-com bust. Some of you're wondering, you're hearing these terms for the first time. Gold went from $400 an ounce to $265, $250 an ounce. Now, let me just start by saying something. There is this common myth that prices of gold don't go down, right? It's a very widely held belief, especially in the subcontinent, that prices of gold don't go down. This is actually not true. I can show you a lot of data for that. But one of the reasons that I am not showing you the rupee data is because then it becomes very regionalized, or the, say, Rial or the Bangladeshi or Taka, Indonesian Taka, is because when you talk about gold in regional currencies like that, you have to take the foreign exchange rate of that currency into account. And that can really play havoc with how the price of gold looks. It can optically look like it's doing well, and it's not to say that it's not, but in real terms, it is not, right? Right. So in terms of gold, right, or almost, let me put this again, this measure to say how much gold fell, right? Gold fell by 36%. I hope you can see that 36% in a matter of 3 years, from about, or 2 years, right? And then from there, it just went off on a rampage, right? Going from $300 an ounce all the way to almost $2,000 an ounce from 2002, 2012. In 10 years, gold went almost 10 times, almost 50 to 2000, right? 9 times, 8 times increase in the price of gold in 10 years. Now, why did this price of gold go up at this ridiculously fast rate? And you have to again go back to history and economics. And again, this is, I'm demonstrating all this because this is real stuff that you and I are impacted by. So after the 1999 2000 bust, countries across the world, all the central banks across the world, this was starting with the US, then went Europe, then Southeast Asia, etc., started printing this enormous amounts of money to pump into the economy, to inflate the economy, and then provide what is called cheap credit so that, jobs and companies and all that, right? Now, all that is fine. One of the things that happens when when that sort of money is pumped in is hard assets like gold, like property, like stocks, etc., which have real intrinsic value, they just shoot up, right? So gold went almost 8 times in 10 years, but then what happened to gold after that? So I'm going to put a line here, right? So let's say this is the peak price of gold that was there in, where is that one? Sorry. That's the peak price of gold in 2012, which is around $1,800 an ounce. What happened after that? From 2012 to 2015, Jan 2016, so that is a 4-year period, gold went down, right? And how much did gold fall? Gold fell from this price to this price, which is approximately a 40% fall in gold. By the way, if you're wondering why it's looking like a small fall, but the numbers are big, because because this is a log scale. If I make it an unlog scale, it'll look a linear scale, it'll look a lot scarier, right? So 40% fall in gold prices happened in 2 years, and then gold price stayed the same from about 2013 till about 2019. So for a full 6 years, gold really didn't do anything. And this myth that we have, that prices of gold only goes up for 6 years, gold went sideways. And then in 2019, gold started to go up. 2020, it shot up. Why did gold shoot up in 2020? Anybody wants to very quickly put it into the chat box? Why did gold shoot up in 2020? I'm sure some of us know, right? That's because of COVID, right? Because of that COVID. So somebody said COVID panic. Yes, because of COVID, the whole world shut down. For the first time in our lives, we saw completely empty streets. For the first time, many people heard birds singing in the cities, etc., right? When the world shuts down and money sort of becomes like, what do you do with it? Gold has been the historical store of value for centuries. Let me show you the multi-centuries chart of gold here right now. I'm just going to scroll back, and this chart is from 1834. Okay. I mean, we can have a whole session on gold, if people are interested. And there's some questions here that you may just want to capture in your notebook, right? But I'm not going to cover this. This was a slide that was made for a gold focused discussion. But just look at it, 1834 to 1972, almost 140, 150 years, gold basically stayed flat. Okay, it really didn't, sorry, it jumped and then it stayed flat till about 1968, 70. And then look at the way gold prices just shot up after that at ridiculous rates, also fell and then shot up again after that, right? So there are some very real historical reasons why gold has behaved like this, right? And to come back to more recent history, a gold price fall of 40%. And then during the COVID pandemic, gold went almost like, say, if you take it from, let's say here to there, we're talking about a 40% rise in gold, right? A 40% rise in gold that happened in about 6 months. Okay. If you could have got, so, all of us who were affected by COVID, when COVID started, and I'm not joking, when COVID started, if all you did was took all your money your stock market money, your cash that was under your mattress, so there's a lot of cash that floats around in the Gulf, right? You don't have to account for anything. If you took all the cash that was there with you in the Gulf, that was there with you in your bank account, and you just went and converted it into gold, 6 months later, you were sitting on a 30 to 40% profit as far as gold prices were concerned, right? So while income stopped, life stopped, business stopped, the economy stopped, gold went up during this time, right? And if you had just done this, COVID was not an economic disaster for you. It was a disaster for everybody, but it was not an economic disaster for you, right? So what happened? What is the other thing, by the way, anyone wants to take a guess, right? Informed guess. When COVID hit the world and global stock markets fell, real estate fell, gold went up. Was there something else that went up? Anybody wants to take a quick guess? What else went up in the world? Price went up in the world when COVID hit. Inflation, not really, right? So somebody saying health sector. Well, here's just to give you a proxy. Here is the 1 second. So I've been just doing a lot of collecting of data. So this is, by the way, TradingView, perhaps the best thing that you have out there in the world, right? You can use it almost if you want. There are also, of course, yeah. So here's the CNX Pharma Index, all right? The CNX Pharma Index that went up. So look at the x-axis right at the bottom. You have 2020, right? It was going down. The pharma index was going down. And then from 7,300 levels, pharma went to 14,000 levels. You doubled your money as far as pharma is concerned. And I can show you healthcare stocks across the world, from the US, from the Gulf, from India, from Japan, where this is what happened to all the pharma companies. Not all of them went up 100%. Some went up more, some went, less. Let's look at, the vaccine, Pfizer. Okay, I'm looking for Pfizer US, right? It doesn't, 1 sec. Pfizer Inc. US, right? That Pfizer from $31 went to $58. From $31 a share, it went to $58 a share. That's a rise of, even if I don't take the bottom, right? It's a rise of 65%, right? Somebody said entertainment, right? Actually, not all entertainment went up, but there was one company whose entertainment, who was pure entertainment, which went up just because, what do you do at home? There's nothing to do, right? So here are two companies for you, right, to look at and think about what happened. So Netflix, okay, look at what happened to Netflix. Okay, now it's coming down. This is where it was, by the way, right? It was here before COVID at around $283. And from around 200, let's just make it $300. It went to $650 per share, right? By the way, all these, the reason I'm showing you all these are because all of you guys sitting in the Gulf, you have absolutely 100% free access to the US markets. You don't have to look at only the Gulf markets. You can all go and trade the US markets completely without any restriction. And this is sort of opportunities which were available for people, right? Since somebody's mentioned entertainment, I brought this up, right? And of course, once COVID got over, right? Once COVID got over, from a peak of about $680, the stock crashed to $160. There are, of course, a lot of other issues involved. Competition, Disney started their own OTT channel and many other companies, but that's not the point. The point is, even during a crisis like COVID, you had gold, you had pharma, you had Netflix And the other one, and we are using the app right now, Zoom, right? Zoom went up. Look at how much Zoom went up in 2020 and is back down. So in 2020, it was a $75 stock. It went to $480. All right. And then it has crashed back down back to 75. So getting out is also important. But if you know what to look for at the time when macro big trend is happening, then you will find something or the other which is out there, which you can always get into, right? This is the point I want to make. This is the point I want to drive home, that even during the worst economic crisis, like you had the COVID, right? You couldn't start a company, you lost a job. What are you going to do? How are you going to make money? Suppose, okay, let me give you a scenario. How many of you heard of the Spanish flu of 1918, 1919? If you go back and look at history, the Spanish flu lasted a good 3 years. Sort of COVID, sort of cut short on that. If let us say the world was still closed today, for whatever reason, okay, for the health reasons, we have forgotten how COVID was. If COVID had run rampant, there was a third wave which sort of didn't happen. Suppose it had happened and COVID was going on right now, what would have happened to, I don't know how many, 500 million people or 1 billion people who would have had zero income, zero savings, zero access to food? What would have happened to them? What would have happened to you? We are all mostly middle class folks on this session, I think, maybe upper middle class or whatever, but I think we would have, felt the pain. Definitely would have felt the pain. So in that sort of a situation, then what, right? The situation we have right now, just to come back to, getting it. So this is all about the past, is this, just to drive this point home again and again and again. Do not please forget that we are living in a hyperinflationary era across the world. It could be something which is a multi-decade phenomenon going forward. What are you going to do? How are you going to manage, right? So this is something to think about as far as, the Gulf market was concerned. And then we had the global markets was concerned. We looked at gold, we looked at, let's look at another thing, so, Gulf, about crude oil and all. So looking at commodities, so here is the price of crude oil. Okay. Since, by the way, there are multiple assets that are traded, right? Multiple assets, whether it is equities, whether it is commodities, whether it is gold, silver, bullion, it is Forex. I'll come to Forex in a little while. These are all things that any of us can do. All you need is a trading account, trading permissions. You need your internet and you need a computer. And of course, you need stuff here in between your head, between the ears, to know what to do, when to do, how to do, right? So let's look at crude oil. Crude oil went up from $25 a barrel to $115 a barrel and has now come back to $80 a barrel. So there's a friend of mine here who used to work for a major, petroleum company, one global company, and we used to have a lot of these discussions. And he was telling me about, how things are happening. And I bring this up point because all of you, trust me, all of you are sitting on a wealth of insight right within your circle of friends and your own workplace that you're not using and connecting to the markets. So all of us have this very, sort of, what do you say, blindsided way of looking at things. We just do our work, put our head down, get it done, make our money, and that's it. But if you start looking at what you already know, what friends know, and then convert that knowledge into market actionable actions, then you'll be very shocked as to what can happen for you as far as making money is concerned, right? So coming back to crude oil. So what happened? Again, back to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. This is nothing to do with COVID now. Russia invades Ukraine. A few weeks later, it starts to shut down the gas supplies to Germany and Europe. I hope you remember that. A lot of us are like, oh, it didn't happen. It happened. And over gradual period of months, they completely shut down all the supplies of natural gas to Germany. And I think Germany was getting almost 40% of its energy from Russia. And so was many other countries in Europe. And what did Europe do? They had to go and get energy from wherever it was available in the world. I can show you stuff, but I'd leave it to you to Google it up. So basically, Europe went and said we cannot risk our future, and winter was coming, if you remember, right? So it's funny how irony happens. So this time's winter in Europe, some of you would have seen it, was a very, very hot winter. There were ski slopes in Europe which had no snow. They had to shut it down because there was such a hot winter that happened there. So they were that way really lucky. Climate change bailed them out, right? If it was the normal winter, forget harsh winter. If there was a normal winter in Europe that had happened, you would have had several thousand people dead and a lot of people who just did not have the money to turn on the furnace. You remember what happened 2-3 months back. I'm sure you read the newspapers. I'm sure you saw the news, and I'm just reminding you of that, right? Okay, so all this is happening and oil goes up. Well, you could have also gotten in and taken that crude oil trade, and you could have bought that crude oil stock, and you could have profited by crude oil going from $30 to $110 a barrel. Why is crude oil down now? Well, winter is over, energy stability has come, etc. Right? So this is another thing that is there. So we saw gold, we saw crude oil, and let me now look at crypto, just because there are people who are there and some of us. So Bitcoin fell from 60,000 all the way to 17,500, and we were like, okay, it's the end of it, it's going to zero. Well, to cut a long story short, I'll just resolve this better. So look at what happened to Bitcoin. 16,800 to 24,000. It is now what we call in a correction. All right. It is correcting down. It'll probably maybe come down to 20, 25, 20,000 or even 19,000, and may stabilize around 20,000 and may. But looks like Bitcoin and other things like Ethereum, right, went from 1,200 to 1,600. Solana went from 12 to 26, so almost double, correcting right now. XRP went from 0.34 to 0.42. By the way, you can't do crypto in India. There's really no way you can do crypto here because of the rules and the regulations. It just makes it impossible. But you guys sitting in the Gulf, I think except for Qatar, which has banned crypto, all the other Gulf countries are okay about crypto, especially the UAE guys, right? And very active crypto market, very active crypto community. Of course, I know there are scams and all sorts of nonsense that's happening, so we need to be careful. But for those of us who are able to do that, then these are sort of other opportunities which are available out there, right? Which now brings me to currency. And I'm going to take the US INR, USD INR as an example, especially the USD INR, because I think a lot of Indians here, but I think it's also relevant because you can really probably map this out for just about every other currency which is out there. And we'll look at probably a few other currencies just to throw light on what is possible in the currency markets. Just look at where the the Indian rupee was just in 2022 January. In 2022 January, the US rupee was 75 rupees per dollar, and it went all the way to 83. 34 to 83. Now, depending on which side of the equation you are, so that's a devaluation of about 12%. Depending on what sort of the equation you are, this is either good news or bad news for you, right? Now, this is particularly close to me because there are some friends of mine who have been like, we keep talking to each other about, let's do this in the market, let's do that in the markets. And I'm happy to, even show you some chat messages that we shared on WhatsApp on gold, on crude oil, and on crypto, and on USD INR. right? So I kept telling them, buy dollars, buy dollars, buy dollars, buy dollars. Now we all know by default that in almost every country now, UK, there are these shops you can just go to, hand over your local currency, and you can convert that into dollars and hold those dollars as long as you want, right? So let's make this very simple. In January of 2022, if you had 75,000 Indian rupees, you could have walked into one of these Forex shops and walked out with $1,000 in your hand. And by November, 8-9 months later, you could have taken the same $1,000, gone back to the same shop, and when you paid 75,000, you would have gotten 83,000 rupees back in your hands, right? A 12% gain on foreign exchange, right? Now, if you were sending money to India, if you were sending money to Pakistan, to Iran, to Malaysia, to Africa, whatever, when the dollar was getting stronger, so I'm shifting conversation. I'm going from the Indian rupee to the dollar. So let me show you the dollar chart, all right? So this is different, right? This is the chart of the dollar strength worldwide. There's something called the DXY, right? This is the dollar index. So, if you compare a currency against the dollar, how do you get the dollar's strength versus other currencies, right? So this is why there's a basket of currencies which is used to compare the strength of the dollar, and from that is derived the DXY index. And this DXY index, you can see, was strengthening. That means across the world, other currencies were getting weaker against the dollar while the dollar was getting stronger. So it doesn't really matter which currency you are holding in the world. When the DXY is going up, and again, see, these are things you can do in the Gulf so easily. There are no restrictions, no foreign exchange problems, nothing in almost every other country except Europe and US and Canada, Australia maybe, and New Zealand, Singapore perhaps. You would have some restrictions on foreign exchange trading. But you guys in the Gulf have no restrictions at all whatsoever on foreign exchange trading. As far as I know, you can hold cash. There is no questions asked to know any limits that you want, right? And I remember coming to Dubai, and I remember going for Hajj, and you had these things in every corner, right? Right from the airport to everywhere that you could just go and exchange currencies like it's chocolates and toffees. So again, the things that are possible because of the location and all the stuff that you have available to you. The dollar index went from 93 all the way to 112, and then now it is cooling off, right? So when this was happening, if you just took your local currency, converted to dollars, and 6 months, 1 year later, you took the same dollars and converted it back to your local currency, you would have gotten maybe a minimum of 5 to perhaps 20% return on your just cash holdings, and you would have beaten inflation at least by half, right? This comes back to your purchasing power, the way you can protect your purchasing power just by doing this. And remember, none of this is day trading. None of this is looking at, morning and evening prices. None of this is even looking at it on a day-to-day basis. This is like looking at a multi-week, multi-month time frame. All the charts that I've discussed so far are of that time frame. I'm not going to do intraday in this session today, right? But this is the sort of money that could have been made, and you could have protected your financial security, right? Now, as the dollar becomes weaker from 114 to 102 right now, and again, there are reasons for this. Global inflation, US dollar. Yes, so somebody's mentioned that Qatari Riyal is pegged to the US dollar. Like most Gulf currencies are, the Saudi Riyal is, the Qatari Riyal is, and all of that. So your currencies are going up and down in line with the dollar, right? So because of that, you need not have even converted it to a dollar. You could have converted the rupee or the Pakistani rupee or the Indonesian rupiah, whatever it is, to your local real there and just held on to it, right? And then converted it back to whatever else. If you are an Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, Filipino, Indonesian, any African country, this is all you needed to do, right? And I would really like to know, I mean, just, a vote of hands. How many of you actually do this and take advantage of these opportunities? You're sitting there. I am in India right now, right? I can't do these things, right? Just not possible. The Indian rules and laws will not permit me. But you guys, they're absolutely free hand. Nobody's, tying your hands down by rules and laws and regulations. But I'm not sure how many. See, the rich and the wealthy know this and they're doing this. My interest is in like how many people like us, we are the ones who are paying the price for economic disasters, which are not made by us, but we are the ones who pay the price. And if we don't take charge of our own financial future, the system is not going to help us at all, right? Okay. So understanding these, global factors, again, like I said, it's all about just having common sense and building your body of knowledge over, however you want. We'll come to, what all is possible. But if we can do that, then I'm just demonstrating to you in this section of the webinar what all is possible, right? Okay. While we are on the dollar, you know what happened with the British pound, right? Very crazy thing that we had the previous prime minister of UK, right? Tuss. And I want to, okay, this is just the GBP, one sec, USD. I'm going to do GBP INR, right? I'm just going to use this as a default example, right? So this was Liz Truss and her famous quad neck budget after she got elected. And, it was just a disaster, the proposals that they made. And look at what happened. The British pound, which was about 100 rupees, 100 Indian rupees for a British pound, in a matter of like 3 months went from 100 to 85. I mean, this is crazy. If you were sending money from UK to India, then instead of, let us say, for £1,000, if you were sending, you were getting a lakh rupees in India, you're now getting 80,000, 85,000, 90,000 rupees. On the other hand, if you're sending money out of India, let us say your kids are doing education in UK, or you're sending money for, I don't know, investing or healthcare, 10-15% difference just in a matter of months. And then she resigned, right? It was just evident that it was just she would have to go. And Rishi Sunak came in, and there's of course the whole set of politics around both sides. And then the pound goes from 90 rupees a pound all the way back to 100 in just a matter of 1 month, right? A 10% increase. So if you were able to do this for the Indian rupee versus pound, and this happened worldwide, the British pound value fell. You could have done this in the GBP versus dollar rate, and you would have made money just looking at politics and just looking at macro things and saying, you know what, this doesn't make sense. This is what's going to happen. You could have asked your friends. There are lots of forums online that are available, and you could have just gone, at least some part of your income or wealth. These were global opportunities that were happening. Now, let me bring up something which is live and current right now. Again, I'm putting out the disclaimers. You may or you may not want to look at this, right? You have to look at the Turkish, right? It is really crazy what's happened in the Turkish lira in the last few years. This is not a recent thing. This is a multi-year phenomenon, right? So I'm just going to spend 5 minutes on this because it looks like there is something that is happening which could turn things around, right? So the Turkish lira, this is the Turkish lira for a dollar. Forget about going too far back in 2020. So I'm going to just, scroll, go back to 2020, right? $1 got you about 6 Turkish lira. All right. $1 got you 6 Turkish lira. Right now, for $1, you get 18 Turkish lira. The economy in Turkey has been battered simply by ultra bad economics. All right. I'm not going to get into the details of the economics, but feel free to go read up all of that. Very unorthodox things which have been proven not to work by other countries. Turkey, the President Erdogan and the Central Bank of Turkey are having policies which are just not good as far as fiscal and monetary policy is concerned. Now what happens? The value of their currency takes a hit. And inflation in Turkey is around 60–70% per year. It's crazy. Can you imagine your prices of your food and staples going up by 50%, 100% every 1 year, 2 years? And this is reflected in the currency rate of Turkey. And this is what you see on the chart, right? Can somebody very quickly on the chat box tell me, what do you see is happening in the last 3–4 months? I'm just going to leave the screen like that, right? So the Turkish lira went from 6 lira per dollar to 18 lira per dollar. But what do you see is happening in the last, let's say, 3–4 months? Anyone? Very quickly. Do you see something different in the chart, in the market, right? Yes, it's constant. It doesn't seem to be rising anymore, right? This rise which was there seems to have stopped. So it was rising, right? And now it is not rising as fast as it was, and definitely seems to be plateauing out, right? You could say it is stabilizing, right? We can't be 100% sure, but yeah, sure. And then it was going up even faster a little while back. Let me just put that, right? It was going up even faster here. Okay. And then if you zoom in clearly for the last about 6 months, 3 months, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. What do you think could happen? Anyone? What do you think could happen? We've had the earthquake and we've had all sorts of things, right, which are happening. In 3 months, there is a election in Turkey that is going to happen. And there's a lot of speculation as to what could happen, whether Erdogan, who has held power for 20 years, will win the election again or will not win the election again. Now, we don't know what the future is, but here is something. What if the worst for the Turkish lira is over and from 18 it starts to be 15, 17, sorry, 15, 12, 10, which means the Turkish lira starts strengthening. All right. What if the Turkish currency, which has becoming weaker and weaker and weaker for almost 2 decades, right? Look at it. Almost for 2 decades. And what we call in the charts is like it's what is called topping up. It seems to have stabilized, as we said. We're not sure whether it'll shoot up again or it'll come down. This is not something which is an immediate opportunity, but it could be an opportunity. And if it has topped out, and let us say from 18, 19 lira per dollar, it starts to become 15, it starts to become 12, 10 and all. What can one do? What can one do? Anyone? Doesn't matter if you're wrong, take a shot. What do you think is the opportunity here? Right? So Nadeem says buy lira. Exactly. Go some of your money, convert some of your money to lira now. Now means not now today, but watch it over the next few days, next few weeks. The critical thing will be the election, okay, and the fiscal policies after that. You could have a gradual shift or a very quick shift. We don't know, right? Erdogan right now is not very popular, right? Both globally and locally, right? We can have different opinions about it, but we'll see what happens in 3 months down. If the lira starts to, or let's be even more conservative. Let us say Turkey starts to adopt, in quotes, rational fiscal policy. Okay, they do what is right for their country, and then the economy starts to stabilize and the currency becomes stronger. Then it is very possible that the lira could come back to what it was maybe 5 years back over a period of time, right? So if you converted, say, dollars or reals or whatever to lira, you bought lira now, and maybe 2 years, maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 5 years, I don't know. If it went back to, let us say, 15 or 20, then you would be making a gain of, let us say, even if I take it to 12, that would be a 33% gain that you make in dollar terms. a 33% gain that you would make in dollar terms. And since all your Gulf currencies are linked to the dollar, you'd be a 33% profit in terms of reals or dirhams or whatever it is, right? This is a real opportunity that some of you can actually look at, right? Coming to other real opportunities that are there, and some of you can look at it, right? Again, hard to do it from India, but those of you who are in the Gulf, so easy for you to do it, right? By the way, those of you in India, it's not that it's not possible. It's just that it takes a little more running around to to go through all the paperwork and all of that. If you're in the Gulf, all this is not there. Okay. Somebody's asking me how to do it. Well, I don't know. Go around, go around to your local Forex corner after the session today and see if those guys are selling you any Turkish liras. Okay. By the way, don't do it blindly, right? Go find out the buying price and the selling price. Normally, there shouldn't be more than a 3% to 4% difference. If there's a much bigger difference, which is actually there in the official rate, then it's not the right thing to do right now, right? So we can talk more in detail about the mechanics of how to do it, when to do it, and all that on a separate session, right? Like I said, the risks are all yours. I'm just demonstrating what is possible. Okay. Again, a live opportunity for some of you, if you want to look at it, is what is there in the Hong Kong market, right? Now, this is the Hong Kong market long-term chart, Hang Seng index, right? And this is, so Hong Kong is what? Basically a puppet of China, right? Now, if you go back to what happened during COVID, then if you go back to see how China sort of clamped down on Hong Kong democracy, on fiscal policy, on free speech. So again, it's about what is called geopolitics and all of that, right? So when all that happened, the Hong Kong stock market fell from 29,000 to 14,500. That's a 50% fall in one of the world's largest equity markets, all right? And by the way, please notice this. This is not the COVID fall. This fall that you see here, okay? Many of the falls that you saw earlier were all COVID falls. What you're seeing here is not the COVID fall. Let's be very clear about this. This fall that happened from Feb 21 onwards is not the COVID fall, or say May 21 onwards. This is the fall that happened because China sort of basically just went all in into Hong Kong and said, you guys shut up, just follow our rules. All right. And there was a lot of people, you would have seen news articles about Hong Kong residents, lifelong residents who left Hong Kong, who went off to UK, got British citizenship. Some of them came to the Gulf looking for jobs, families left, all sorts of things have happened, right? And the other thing that happened is flow of money between Hong Kong and China and the rest of the world also dramatically came down. There were a lot of multinational global companies who pulled out of Hong Kong. So there's a whole set of things that happened. And what happened while this is happening? The stock prices fell, profits fell, everything fell, jobs were lost, and half the market lost its value. The market lost its value by half, from 29,000 to 14,500. And then what happened? Have you seen that article where Hong Kong has now issued or is giving away 500,000 free airline tickets to get tourists back, right? Some of you in the Gulf should apply for this, because for India, there's like, they have very tight pockets for this. So all of you, please go after the webinar and check if you're eligible for a free flight ticket to Hong Kong for a holiday, right? The Hong Kong/Chinese government said, okay, we want everybody back. They said, forget about your COVID vaccinations, no quarantine, nothing. And people are going. And if you look at what happened on Chinese New Year, you see what all the borders are open, everything is fine. As long as you don't talk politics, you can do whatever you want. So what happened to the Hong Kong economy? What happened to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange? From 14,500, it went to 21,000 in just a matter of from October last year to now, 4 months. How much is that rise? That is a rise of 47%, almost 50%, all right, 48% in 3 months. A 48% 3-month rise is, and remember, this is the entire economy. This is not just one stock, right? It is it is a huge thing for a global index like this to have gone up by 40% in 3 months. That's like what? Into 4, 200%, right? In 1 year. This is huge. This is massive, right? Those of you who are sitting in Hong Kong, you could have gone and bought what is called a Hong Kong stock exchange. Sorry, those of you sitting in the Gulf or in US or in Canada. In India, we can do it. If you're in Pakistan or in South Asia or Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, also you could do it. But then there are restrictions and there are things that you'll have to go through. All right. But there, you guys in the Gulf, you could have just bought Hong Kong stocks. You could have bought Hong Kong exchange traded funds. You could have bought Hong Kong mutual funds and just sat on it just by tracking these macro factors, not even individual companies. Okay. We're not even talking about individual companies. And you would have made 40, 50, 60% if you're looking at individual companies in just 3 to 4 months. You are not a day trader, nothing. You're just looking for these opportunities that happen at a huge macro level. Now, the story is not over. Hong Kong has just opened up. All right. So it's gone up. It's coming down a little bit right now. It may come down maybe to 20,000. But I think there's an opportunity here because there's a long way for Hong Kong to completely recover. And as you know, China has completely abandoned its COVID policy and they're like, everything is gone. There are no restrictions at all. They want business back. They have all sorts of things. And it's just like I said, even India has abandoned everything as far as the COVID thing is concerned. China has abandoned it. UAE was the first one to abandon it. That's why you had the huge run up in the UAE stock exchange that I showed about 45 minutes, an hour back, right? Now, if China, not if, sorry, let me correct myself. As China opens up further, Hong Kong markets will rise further. The lifetime high of the Hong Kong market, remember, is, let's see, let's get more data and to be sure. Yeah, 87 is at this level. All right, is at 33,000. So even from 21,000 to 33,000, that's another 50% that the Hong Kong index has to go up by. I think it'll happen. May not happen this year. Even if it happens in a year or two, you're talking about a 50% rise. That's almost 25% per year rise that happened in 2 years. Individual stocks in Hong Kong, those of us who are like intermediate level traders, investors, or advanced traders, you can go look at individual stocks and those could rise 50%, 100%, 200%, who knows, right? So there's a huge opportunity in Hong Kong, which is there right now. Now, here's the interesting thing, just to get another point across. While all this is happening, India Nifty has gone up, and I'm sure you have all heard about the Adani fiasco and things like that and all those things, right? And we have come down a little bit, right? And right now, there is no complete evidence that we are going to go back up. We may still be in a downtrend. But as you saw, when India was going up, Hong Kong was going down. Now, when Hong Kong is going up, India is going down. And I'm just using these two as an example. I can show you this versus Germany. I can show you this versus France. I can show you this versus Australia or some other place, right? My point here is, while India is going down here, there are other parts of the world which are going up. Let me show you another part of the world which is going up, which is Germany here. See how much Germany has gone up? From 12,000 to 15,000. Again, those of you who are in the Gulf, 100% tax free, you could do all these things sitting right there, right? Things which are very hard to do or a lot more cumbersome if you are in a country which has restrictions on foreign trading, etc., which most countries do, but Gulf doesn't, right? US doesn't, Canada doesn't, right? Australia doesn't, Hong Kong doesn't. I think Malaysia also doesn't, right? Japan doesn't, but most of Asian and African do. So I am like, my hands tied. I really can't do much, right? But you guys there, you have all the opportunity and all the freedom to do that. So look at, look at this. This is the German index. Just look at how it has gone up. I'm going to switch to the Nifty index, okay, and see that during the same period it has gone down. So this is about rotating your money, right? Get out of what is not doing well get out of what is going down and put it into what is doing well. All right. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. If you are in the Gulf, you have complete freedom and access to all these global markets out there. All you need to do is tap into it, right? So look at Hong Kong, look at the lira, okay? And let me also then at least end this part by saying, look at gold, right? This is the longer term gold picture, okay? So gold, after going up almost 30-40%, sorry, 15%, sorry, 35% in a matter of like 6 months during COVID. Then again, gold went up from here at $1,650 an ounce to 1,700. Just from October to now, it has gone up by percent. Okay, this part. Okay, and again, some of you on the webinar know that we were discussing this 2-3 months back, right? And this is not over. If global inflation, going back to the story of global inflation, if global inflation stays high, remember this chart? Okay. Right? Remember this chart? If global inflation stays high, then gold is likely to get more expensive and the price of gold is likely to keep going up, perhaps for many months or even a few years. Right now, we don't have that 100%. By the way, there's nothing like 100% surety or clarity that this is how markets will behave. There's always the risk that you have to take. Our job, your job, my job is to basically do our best analysis and to make the best decision that we can, and then take a position and make sure that if it goes down, we get out quickly, right? So again, you have systems for that, you have exit orders for that, you have alerts for that, right? That you can do to make sure that you don't lose much. And on the other hand, that if it goes up, it keeps going up and your exit price keeps rising, 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 rising. So these are technicalities that all of us should learn, right? So like I was saying, if we are in the phase of a global high inflation era, then well, gold is likely to keep rising and go to even higher levels, right? Gold in rupee terms already hit a life high about a month back, a couple of weeks back, right? But if it starts to go to higher levels in dollar prices, which is likely, then once gold crosses $2,000 an ounce, which I think could happen in the next few months, then it could very quickly go to 2,500, maybe even 3,000 in a year or two. It could happen if there's a global recession, if inflation becomes rampant. And by the way, there are a couple of very interesting things to keep a watch out for in the next 6 months to 18 months. One is, the most important thing perhaps, is the US general election in 2024. Do the Democrats come back or not? You have the Indian election in 2024. What happens to Modi? Then you have what happened with China, Taiwan, and then you have this balloon thing, fiasco, this weather balloon, spy balloon that China has. We don't know where things could, become even bigger crises. And if that happens, then gold will rise. Okay. If Ukraine or if Russia invades Ukraine and does something else, gold will rise. So we are definitely not out of the woods, as they say. There are lots of challenges for the world that are going to happen in the next 6 months to 18 months. And I think there's a more than 60-70% chance that gold is going to go up rather than go down. So maybe you should, go buy 1 gram, 5 grams, and some of you probably buy 10 kgs. I don't know. I don't know how wealthy you are. So go look at it, and who knows what is possible for you, right? So to close this part, we talked about gold. We talked about the Turkish lira. We talked about the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And oh yeah, I almost forgot. I would have really felt bad if I had completely forgotten this. I'd like to just spend a few minutes talking about the Saudi Stock Exchange, right? There are a number of you here from Saudi Arabia. I know that, right? This is what is called the TASI, TASI, Tadawul All Shares Index, TASI, right? Saudi Arabia that way has been quite at the back of, say, UAE, and even to some extent Qatar in opening up the financial services, right? But all of you know about the Saudi Vision 2030, right? It's a huge thing, and I have a completely different group dedicated to that, to discussing that and posting stuff on it. Some of you are already on that group. It is my very strong belief that many people still don't understand how significant, how big the transformation of Saudi Arabia is on many fronts, cultural and economic, right? Now, without getting into the controversies of anything, the point here is that the economic transformation on Saudi Arabia is unprecedented. It is happening at a rate and at a pace which has never happened before in the world. Saudi is attempting to do, let's say, what India did in the last 30 years. If some of you will remember how India was in 1990, let us say, or let's say your country, I don't know. I know there are some folks from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from other places. Look at your country 20, 30 years back, right? How much did it develop in the last 30 years? None of us would have predicted what happened in the last 30 years happened in those countries, right? Well, let me just put it in a nutshell like this. Saudi Arabia is trying to do that sort of a transformation in less than 10 years. And from everything that I read, and I've visited a lot of the government publications, I've read some deep research, I've done a lot of deep reading, I've been talking to people, etc. Saudi Arabia is undergoing an enormous transformation where enormous wealth will be created, and the Saudi Stock Exchange, as one of the things, reflections of the Saudi Vision 2030, is, in my opinion, going to do extremely well and could be one of the leading stock exchange returns that happen in the next few years. Those of you are in the Gulf, again, I cannot insist this enough. Okay, you are sitting, at the right time, at the right place. I don't have any individual recommendations. This is not the time for individual recommendations, but I have to emphasize that what is going to happen in the Saudi Stock Exchange is a reflection of the Saudi economy, which is a reflection of the Saudi economic transformation. And I can spend hours talking about it. What is happening is that the Saudi exchange, I really haven't been able to figure out why this happened. In 2005, went off to on one crazy ride and went to almost 19,500. Then crashed in 2008 to 4,000. So imagine what sort of a crash this was, right? This is a huge crash that happened. And then from 2008 till 2020, the Saudi Stock Exchange has basically done not much, which means most of the companies there have not done anything much, right? Now, those of you who know some basic stock markets, right? And I remember, my 5-year-old nephew, or 4 years was he, sitting in one of my classes. This was 10, 15 years back. I was drawing these lines for the members in the class, and he just came and sat in my lap. And I was telling him, teaching him, and I still distinctly remember, so these are what are called support lines or resistance lines, right? So the lower one is a support line and the top one is a resistance line, right? We can have multiples of those. This is very, very, very basic market analysis, chart analysis. And what I'm telling you, or what the charts, not what I'm telling you, it's what the charts are telling us, is that the Saudi Stock Exchange, after having gone to 13,000 in April 22 and having corrected, is coming to a place of excellent support, right? And it may come down more. I don't know. There are a lot of things that can happen. But over the next few months and next many years, I think the Saudi Stock Exchange is going to do really well. And if we can, or you can, get into more details about the Saudi market. So like, here I have, where is that? We had here I put the MENA exchanges. So okay, let me just show you something. All right. This is a little more detailed. Just bear with me. I hope it delivers a point. Tadawul indices, Saudi Arabia. Okay. All right. I hope you can see what is on my screen, right? I'm just going to very quickly read out Tadawul All Shares Index, the Tadawul Bank Index, the Tadawul Insurance Index, the Tadawul Energy Index, Materials Index, Consumer Index, Food Beverages Index, Software Index, Real Estate Index, Healthcare Index, Capital Goods Index, uh, Telecommunication Index, the Real Estate Investment Trust Index, the Media Entertainment Index, the Transportation Index, the Utilities Index, the Retailing Index, the Pharma Index, the Sukuk Index, if you're interested in bonds, and the Government Index, Government Bonds Index. Like all these, so much data available to all of us at the fingertips. If we can go dive into this, believe me, you're going to find opportunities which are ready to take off in the Saudi stock market, in the Dubai stock market, in the Kuwaiti, Qatar stock market, right? And from there, you can find enormous wealth creators, which will go up, I don't know, 2x, 10x, 5x, 10x in the next many years, right? Again, completely 100% tax-free, easy to do. The sad part is, I think the Gulf stock market and the Gulf retail level. See, there's a lot of these, scams that are happening, crypto scam, stock market scam, and I'm not talking about that, right? If you get your head on your shoulders, and if we get together and do the research that is required, then with Saudi Vision 2030 that is going on, and all the sort of data that you're seeing on the screen that is available to you, yes, some of it for which you'll have to pay and get a subscription, etc. If you and we and all get together, create your own groups. Okay, I'm going to come to that in a little bit. If you can do that, then the sort of opportunities you guys are sitting on is just literally, I'm not kidding, once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime opportunities to create fantastic wealth. You don't have to look anywhere else. And the best part is you can see it with your eyes. If you can go touch, see, feel the roads, the airports, the railway stations, the food, the malls, etc., transportation. I mean, we can just go on and on. So go and take a look. And it is very likely TASI exchange after coming to a certain TASI index after coming to a certain level is likely to go up. I've been doing some research on, what the ecosystem of stock brokers and banks in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia especially is. It's quite, unfortunately, what I have to say is quite sad. When I see those websites, I'm reminded of how India was 1990s, 2000s, and all of that. There's a lot of growth which is possible, which has happened in the rest of the world, which has not happened at the retail level stock market participation in the Middle East, right? Dubai is an exception, but Dubai is also a place where a lot of nonsense happens, right? To find real stuff in Dubai is hard, right? To find real stuff in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere, I think is much, much easier, okay? There's a lot less fluff and a lot less jazz. Therefore, the risk of losing money is not so high. Not that it ever goes away, right? But I just had to demonstrate this. And from 10,000 level, if the Saudi exchange, not if, it's just a question of when. By the way, the number of new companies that are going to be listed on the Saudi stock market in the next 2-3 years, hundreds are going to get listed, right? There are only, there's a document I have somewhere. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, let me, at least I'll try and get it before the session is over. It doesn't matter, right? There are only about 300 or 400 companies which are there. 270, yeah, 270 companies which are listed in the Saudi Stock Exchange. India has 5,000 companies which are listed. US has 4,000 companies which are listed. China has 4,000 companies which are listed, right? So we're talking about very small bases right now. And hundreds more are going to get added in the Saudi and other Gulf exchanges in the next 1 or 2 years. So the sort of wealth creation opportunity that is there in Saudi and Qatar and Kuwait, Bahrain, GCC equities, I think is unprecedented. By the way, Dubai wants to become one of the world's leaders in places where global hedge funds are headquartered and located. They've been doing a lot of opening up on their rules and regulations. So the Dubai Financial Market Authority, all right. So many global hedge funds, and I have pictures, but I don't have time to show you this. I have news articles I can show you, have shifted base from London, from New York to Dubai. All right. We are talking about multi-billion-dollar fund houses which have moved to Dubai, right? Uh, Saudi is talking about, has implemented this plan that the Middle East regional headquarters has to be in Riyadh or somewhere in Saudi. So a lot of these MNCs are moving to Saudi. I know a lot of people from Dubai and Abu Dhabi are moving to Saudi. So there's a lot of stuff happening which is there. And it doesn't matter if you're in Saudi or not in Saudi, right? The thing is anybody can buy. Open a trading account, learn markets, and then start to get in and participate in a once in a lifetime wealth creation opportunity that is available to all of us. Spread the message around, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, make groups of people. And I'm not saying be blind and be foolish, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. I just had to talk about it. I'm glad I remembered, right? Okay, so way to open a trading account, etc. So let me just come very quickly to the, oh, it's already almost 9. I will need a few more minutes to, so I hope that, what we did so far was a good idea for you to get a sense of what all is possible in the markets, especially in the Middle East, right? I want to very quickly get into a few things about what are the next steps that you should be looking at, right? And I am also wanting to share here what are the things that I am looking at. And if there is any place for us to collaborate, for us to come together, for us to do something, for looking for ways to really, really benefit, and it has to be a win-win-win situation. I very seriously believe in that, right? Then I'm looking for that. And this is a very quick slide about what is possible. And I invite all of you to look at it, think about it, and then connect back. And when we can talk about it more in detail, right? So there are things that you'll have to do as far as your education and all that is concerned at whatever level you are. You're a student, you are a basic guy, or you're a advanced person. So there are courses that we can have, right, from very simple ones, okay, to very advanced ones, depending on whatever it is that one is looking at. Simple ones, right from the basics, zero knowledge, and then we'll build from there. For those who are advanced, people who are advanced, who want to make markets their significant and even primary source of income and wealth, we can do things for that. By the way, when we talk about courses, these are not simple 1-day, 2-day courses. It can be. But if you're serious about the markets, and we're not running some nonsense, jazz here. If you're serious about the markets, and if you've understood what the opportunity is for you for your future financial security, no matter what happens in the world, and if you're willing to take this seriously, then I'm happy to, discuss and take this forward. One of the things I'm very keen about is the next generation, right? The kids, the university students, and the first-time earners. If we can teach our next generation, our children, how to invest properly and how to create wealth, I think that will be one of the best things that we can perhaps do for the next generation, especially in a world which is more and more uncertain for all the reasons that we discussed earlier, right? So if you're interested in this, then let's talk about it and we can start live online sessions, etc. Right? Next, something that we have to do is keep the conversation alive, right? So today I hope was a good Kickstarter for all of you. There are some groups that we already have on WhatsApp and something that we would like to expand and have discussions on current affairs, politics, economic news, etc. What is happening to the rupee? What is happening to the dollar? What is happening to Saudi exchange? What is happening in the American markets? What's happening in the various things? Like you got a sense of what is possible, right? So we would like to have this, and we would like to create groups, right? Some of you are part of something called the Understanding Money group that has been running there for the last 6 months on WhatsApp. Right? It just started as a very casual hobby. Some people have shown some seriousness, so we kept it alive. So maybe we'll add that. So if you want to join these groups or you want to create your own group, then ping, right? You have my number. You know how to get in touch with me. We want to get this organized and do something and see if people are interested. It could be on WhatsApp, it could be on Telegram, it could be on Discord. I'm definitely looking for people who can manage groups and contribute to the conversation, right? Because there's, like I said, there's so much happening in the world out there. And if you just connect into what you already know, suppose you're working in the, I don't know, oil and gas industry, right? And you know something is happening and we talk about it. You'll be surprised as to how that information could get connected to some stock that is there in the oil and gas industry and say, this is a good time to buy this stock. Suppose you are in, I don't know, let's say the education industry or transportation, and something is happening there. So maybe something with electric vehicles or, some hundreds of trucks or thousands of trucks are being bought. You go investigate deeper into it. And, one thing leads to another, one thing leads to another, one thing leads to another. And then who knows where this whole conversation goes. So looking for contributors and managers of conversations, right, of groups, because really this has to be a community effort. Inshallah, all going well in the future, thinking future means very soon in the next 1 or 2 weeks, thinking of having these regular webinars on maybe 2 or 3 in a week. Some of the webinars will be focused only on Gulf countries, Gulf stocks, Gulf opportunities. Some will be only on US markets. Some will be only on India for the folks who are resident in India. Some could be only on crypto or Forex. If you are interested in any of these webinars, then let us know. Some will be free, some will be paid. We'll see, how this all works out, right? So like you got a sense of what we discussed with gold and crypto and US dollar and all, these will be more focused webinars on individual stock exchanges, on individual countries, on individual stocks, right, and opportunities. And then we'll keep this running so that you get a sense of, okay, it's not one time fill it and shut it. It's like you have to do something, then you have to keep updating. The world is dynamic, right? Things keep changing. What's happening with this? What's happening with that? So with that, your knowledge also grows, your competence also grows, your skill level also grows, right? And you have an opportunity to ask questions and then, get that clarified from the rest of the people, not just me or somebody else, right? I would love this to be a community effort, and each of us form our own groups of friends and family and all of that and get this conversation really, really started, right? So the important thing is competence and trust. Today on the internet, there's so much, but it's hard to know who to trust, who not to trust, right? So if you can come together on the basis of competence and trust, that would be fantastic, right? Next, we would like to start services on financial planning and on wealth creation, right? So if you're looking to look at how your finances are, how your personal finances are, what you need to do to improve it, to identify what are the gaps, and then find out what are the things that you can improve, how to increase returns, which are specific to you, not generic, this thing of one size fits all doesn't work. It has to work for you, your specific requirements, your specific, future goals, your challenges, your opportunities, etc. So those of us who are interested, let's start conversations around this, right? Wealth creation. So somebody was asking about, where to open a trading account. There's no simple answer to that. If you're a very new person, then open it with a platform which is easy to understand and intuitive to use. If you're a very advanced person, then there are different things that are there, right? Ideally, open in a global platform where you can have access to multiple markets, global markets, currency markets, equity markets, gold markets, etc., all on one. Otherwise, it'll be something here, something there. You don't know what's happening overall. It becomes very hard to manage. We can help you with this, right? On a case-by-case basis, we can definitely help you with that if you are interested in how to go about choosing what is the right broker for you. By the way, I am not associated with any company or anything. I'm not selling anything. I don't make commissions out of it. But these are services that we would like to start along with partners across the Gulf, right? And if you're interested in that sort of a partnership, then I would love to talk to you, right? And it has to be a win for you, win for the customer, win for me, right? And everything is 100% transparent. There is no, once you understand how how the systems are set up, you can understand that fraud is not possible, right? You give your money to somebody else, then somebody can cheat you. Don't give your money to anybody. Have it absolutely under your name. Under no circumstances give your money to anybody else, right? Having somebody manage your money is different from giving your money to that person and managing it. They can run away with it, right? And we know scam after scam after scam. Don't get into that. How to go about it? What are the systems? What are the platforms that are available? Maybe for another session or on a one-to-one. Let's get in touch. Next, like I said, seeking partners, right? So looking for a win-win-win situation. If you're looking to leverage your skills, your networks, your opportunities, wherever, whichever part of the world you are, because I know some people are there from East Asia, there are some people from the US, and there's some people right from Europe and mostly from Gulf and some from India, right? Trust me, all of us have things that you can leverage on. No matter what work you're doing, no matter what circle you are in, if you're willing to get into it, and then see what the beneficial opportunities for you are and where you can offer services for other people, for yourself, then I have the, what do I say, the subject matter expertise. I've got 10, 15, 20 years in different topics. You have your networks and contacts, and maybe something there's something that we can work together on. But you have to be able to commit meaningful time and effort. It cannot just be, okay, you're very busy, then obviously it doesn't work, right? Like I said, would you like to educate your circle of influence? Would you like to organize a session like this for others? It could be a private session for your friends, for your family, get them together, you organize it. We'll we'll hold it. We'll like this live online session. It could be on a specific topic. It need not be general and broad like this, right? But I would love to get this message across to as many people as we can, right? So if you're interested, let's get in touch. Would you like to organize courses, be a part of courses, learn, organize courses, create wealth for your people, our people? Like I said, the challenges are many. Do you have domain knowledge? I don't care what domain knowledge you have. Like, how about doing a live session for all of us, right? Uh, I don't know. There's a friend of mine right now. I'm not going to say any names. Who's a cybersecurity expert, right? Just joined in from Canada. I would love him to do a session on, cybersecurity, both in terms of what you need to know to protect your digital identity, but what are the investment and trading opportunities in cybersecurity? Like that, you could be anything. I don't care. You could be an agriculturist, you could be a space scientist, you could be a student doing PhD. There is stuff, and trust me, there's one thing I know, right? So I'm looking at you directly. I'm telling you one thing. Get in touch, and I will dig out that gold that all of you have. It's just a question of perspective. It's about finding what you know, but you don't deem it to be valuable. We will make it valuable, right? Would you like to engage in that sort of a conversation one-to-one or as a group? And then as a group benefit, it becomes great for everybody, right? One specific thing or two specific things, software skills, right? Right now, the world is all digital. You have AI, ML, and all sorts of things happening, exciting stuff that's happening there. If you're on the IT side, you're on the technology side, you have software skills. I would love to interact specifically on that, both to understand the domain better, but also, what do I say? Building systems, building tools that we can use market data on to find opportunities, because there's so much data. There are thousands of companies, stocks, commodities, Forex, things there. And if we can come together and collaborate on that analysis, then that will be great. And I don't know what surprises you have up your sleeves, right? So some of you are messaging me directly and saying you're interested in this or that, but you're not sure about that or that. That's okay. Doesn't matter. Whatever you are interested in, let's connect. And whatever you have doubts on, let's talk about your doubts. Mostly the doubts are, what would I say? Self-doubt, it's like you're not sure, but it just needs clarifying. And if we discussed it more in detail, you'll probably see, yeah, that is something that is possible for you, right? See, for me, the markets have been life-changing in every way possible, in the knowledge, in money, in freedom of time, in being able to do a lot of things for myself, and most importantly, not being a victim of a job, not being victim of economic recession, not being a victim of stock market crashes, right? This is what I would love for others to have, especially, like I said, the next generation, for younger people, and for senior citizens or elders out there. Let's do this for our not only for our future old age, right, and our financial security, but for our kids and our children. And many times children, we cannot expect our children to be as informed or as wise as think about it. How wise was I when I was like 20 years younger? I was a fool, right? So you can't get back that. You can't get back that time. You can't get back that opportunity. But out of that wisdom and that experience, maybe we can make a difference. Not maybe, I'm sure we can make a huge difference for the next gen. There are two things that I'm specifically interested in. I'm just putting it out there because I don't know who's there and what sort of, I really believe in luck and serendipity. Two things: finance labs. If you're part of a university, if you're part of a college, anywhere, especially in the Gulf, right? Because again, this is something I've been doing. Many of the universities and colleges do not have a finance lab. I would love to help set up a world-class finance lab in that institution. If you're part of an institution or you can connect to an institution, right? Any university or college or organizations, there are free tools and some paid tools available. Depending on what that institution wants, we could help them and get this message across a lot more. And I'd love to do this across the world wherever possible. But I'm specifically looking at the Gulf and wherever else where this education is not really there. In India too. In India, we have started, many universities and colleges in India have started this finance labs, right? By the way, don't think a finance lab is only for finance guys or MBA guys or CAs and all that. This is for the general graduates of any degree or diploma level where they get this sort of deep knowledge and then can go on to not only use it for themselves, but also for others. The other thing I'm particularly keen on is Sharia investing and Sharia trading, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion and myths and misinformation about what is, and a lot of us Muslims especially are like, okay, do we listen to that fatwa or this fatwa? This is confusing, that is confusing, and all of that. Fortunately, today there are tools and available, there are screeners available, there are ways to discuss this and resolve this, right? There's a huge amount of content. Some of it is useless, some of it is really good. And those of us who are especially keen to go the Sharia way, the halal way, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, especially because the West has woken up to what is called ESG investing. ESG investing is what? Environment, social, and governance based investing. So this, what is called the left liberal movement, where people want to do something sustainable for the future. They want to do something against which is environmentally sustainable, which is socially good, all right, and has good ethical governance in its in the company, in the practices, is good for all the stakeholders, which is what Sharia is all about, right? This is a global trend, and this is taken on great traction. There are global platforms. There are service providers like Bloomberg, like Refinitiv, like Thomson Reuters, which was part of Refinitiv was part of that. Almost all the global large banks and financial institutions have ESG investing as a core growth engine, and ESG investing overlaps with Sharia investing fantastically well, right? There's a problem of perception and a problem of branding, which is happening. But the time for Sharia investing has come, not so much because Sharia guys did much, but the West and the institutions in the West have actually moved onto the ESG side. You can actually almost replace the ESG label with the Sharia label, right? It'll work. So there's a lot of data and stuff that is available today, screeners that are available today. And I really believe there's a huge opportunity globally, whether it's in the Gulf or India or anywhere else. So anybody looking to look at this specifically, right? This is something which is close to my heart. Finance labs and Sharia-based investing in a practical manner. There's a lot of this, we have a lot of this hi-fi talk, which does not meet reality, but that fortunately today is not so much of an issue. So if you're looking at practical approach to that, I think it is possible. It's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, and anybody getting into it, you will be shocked as to what is possible, not only for our own selves from a spiritual angle, but from a real service to society and to to wealth creation, etc. In an ethical manner where we can sleep carefully and aram se, right? So these are two things. Would love to connect on this issue, right? So I'm coming to the end. Last slide, right? I've taken 15-20 minutes more than I wanted to. Thank you very much for participating, right? Many of you have stayed the entire session. Really appreciate it. Special thanks to those who forwarded the post to you, right? I don't know who you are. I don't know who they are. please thank them on your behalf and on my behalf. If you got the post about today's session from somebody, please go back to them and thank them. Otherwise, you and I would not have been able to connect. You have my contact information on the screen, right? +91 India number 93419675573. The email is askmusa@gmail.com. And depending on what the feedback is and what the interest is, we would love to start groups, WhatsApp groups, and keep this conversation alive. Specific groups for specific, what do I say? Purposes, right? So we could have something which is specifically for Gulf investing. We could have specifically something for US investing. We could have something specifically for global current affairs and geopolitics and things like that. And all this needs to be managed, right? So I think today's session gave you a flavor of what is possible. It also gave you a flavor of the wealth creation that is possible. And if we can all take this on jointly and take this forward, inshallah, there'll be a wonderful opportunity that is there. One last thing, I want to just come back again to this next gen thing. One of the things we want to start doing is create courses for teenagers and for young adults. When I say teenagers, we're talking about 13 years and upwards, right? Start teaching them about money, not about wealth and creating money and becoming materialistic. The foundations of having a good life and the foundations on the basis of which they can build a fantastic future for themselves, right? So with that, Jazakallah, thank you wherever you are. Really look forward to your feedback. I really mean this when I say feedback is requested and welcomed, right? I'd love to see your connection, to meet again in person, inshallah, and who knows where this goes. So thank you very much. And I'll be seeing you online soon again. Allah Hafiz. Good night. Goodbye. If you have any questions, by the way, post them on the group, right? And inshallah, we'll have maybe another Q&A session to clarify all the questions, or we'll just respond to them on the group for everybody's benefit as is appropriate, right? So with that, bye.
Thanks.